Good morning, Year 11. This is Miss Wills here again. So we are now going to be focusing on lesson 4 today. Last lesson focusing on writing a shock before we look at how to write sarcastically. So what we're going to think about first of all in this lesson is thinking back to the list that you created about the key issues in society and topics you could perhaps talk about. Now, what I'd like you to do is just kind of look over your notes again, just to remind yourself of that mind map you created about your issue and your topic that you've chosen. And I would just like you to read over your opinions that you've got down, the research that you've got down, see if there's anything that you want to add or anything like that. And I think it's really important as well is having a conversation with someone if you can at home about this situation. Tell them, shock someone at home about these statistics, about these bits of information that you found online about the issue you're looking at. See what kind of reaction you get and think about how you could convey that on the page and how you could kind of achieve the same reaction through your writing as well. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today then, last couple of lessons ago, what you were looking at was you read a speech about climate change and you boxed it up to say, right, okay, so what has this writer done? How has they crafted this speech in order to shock, in order to engage and evoke these extreme emotions from an audience? What we're going to be doing today is we're going to do the same, but for an article. And I do remember, guys, you have the option to write either a speech or an article. So that is why we're looking at two. So today we'll start by exploring the methods of a writer who also wants to shock the reader into thinking hard and persuade them to change their behaviours in a newspaper article. Now, this is a newspaper article in The Guardian. Our last lesson we read about global warming, so we've got a different topic that we're looking at today, with kind of again more strong opinions and strong writing. So before we begin to plan our own piece of writing, we need to look at how people can actually convey these strong opinions on the page and deliberately use language to do this as well. So we're going to be looking at how Chris Packham, how he creates this piece of writing and this article in order to provoke a reaction from a reader and to really get his point across, and encourage and persuade change as well. So we're going to read the article first of all, and I'm going to kind of read it with you. And what I'd like you to do as you're reading the article is I would like you to think about, okay, what is he doing with his language here? Can you pick out any of these features we've been looking at so far? So anecdotes, for example, statistics, emotive language, rules of three, repetition, metaphors, all these kind of language techniques that we've looked at so far that really kind of help build and craft a strong piece of writing. I want you to see where we can find these in this piece of writing as well in this article. Okay, so we'll read the article and we're going to have a little think about, you're going to have a little think about how is it structured effectively and also the language devices that are used. Now, because it is an article, of course, the headline and the heading of the article is just as important, is important as well as the rest of it. So here we have, my manifesto could save Britain's dying wildlife. So quite a bold claim straight away with this here. And of course, we've got the emotive language straight away of dying wildlife. So this is an issue that is happening now. So perhaps already engaging a reader straight away. Earlier this summer, I sat in my garden admiring a small wildflower patch I'd sown. Then I realised something was missing. Not a single butterfly jinked between the flowers. No bumblebees buzzed. No hoverflies hovered. We have lots of data to prove these absences and have become inured to them. We say that we've lost 97% of our flower-rich meadows since the 1930s, or that we've lost 86% of corn bunting, or 97% of hedgehogs. Lost. As if this habitat and these species have mysteriously disappeared into the ether. Lost means inadvertently misplaced. No, our wildlife is being killed, starved, poisoned, ploughed up or concreted over. Our lazy, self-excusing terminology is representative of our chronic acceptance of such appalling catastrophes. We share these shocking statistics like a vicious game of top trumps, to the extent that they have lost their meaning. We've forgotten that they are a death toll, the dwindling voices of vanished millions, a tragic echo of a recent time of plentiful life. According to the Definitive State of Nature report, between 1970 and 2013, 56% of UK species declined, and 15% are now threatened with extinction. Of the 218 countries assessed for biodiversity and intactness, the UK is ranked 189. We are among the most nature-depleted countries in the world. Some of these ideas will ensure that everyone, no matter how urban, can gain access to high-quality green space. It's time to rouse ourselves from this complacent stupor, because we are presiding over an ecological apocalypse. But it's not too late. There is hope we can hold on to, and there is action we can take. I've been organising the first People's Walk for Wildlife, which takes place in London this Saturday from midday. Everyone's invited. Foresters, reserve wardens, teachers, students, children, scientists, artists, bloggers, activists, volunteers, gardeners. We're going to sing songs, play a bird song for the missing birds, and share our love of all species. But this isn't some fluffy bunny-hugging endeavour. We have specific ideas to fix this too. Today I'm publishing a People's Manifesto for Wildlife, which we will present to the Environment Secretary, Michael Gove. I asked 17 independent experts to suggest practical, creative and hard-hitting measures to stop the destruction. They've amazed me. We've produced a manifesto containing nearly 200 ideas to revive British wildlife. Some are imaginative steps to ensure future generations grow up better connected to the natural world. Every primary school child could have 1 day of outdoor learning each fortnight. Train every primary school with a farm to help children understand farming and food growing. Get primary school classes to name and own significant urban trees. Perpetuity to form lifelong bonds between people and trees. Other ideas will ensure that everyone, no matter how urban, can gain access to high-quality green space. Hospitals must be supported to increase provision of nearby nature for patients and relatives. The NHS could work with environmental groups to develop eco-prescribing, such as forest bathing, as practiced in Japan. Swift, sparrow or starling boxes could be installed on all new builds. Every park and industrial estate should have a wildlife pond. We also call for long overdue legal changes. Ban the weed killer, glyphosate. Ban driven grouse shooting. Ban scallop dredging in UK waters. Ban snares. The UK is one of only 5 EU member states where snaring is legal. Some bans will directly impinge upon our popular freedoms, such as excluding dogs, except assistant dogs, from nature reserves. We cannot live with impunity now we number nearly 70 million people. Many of these measures are cheap. Introduced today, they would transform Britain's wildlife tomorrow, but the biggest positive effect on wildlife can be made by the custodians of 70% of Britain's land farmers. There is no doubt industrial farming has driven much of the decline in wildlife, but it's not fair to blame individual farmers. If this becomes a fight between farmers and the conservationists, we all lose. Brexit gives us an opportunity to devise new, improved financial support for genuinely sustainable farming, which by definition is wildlife-friendly farming. Ultimately, we depend on other species for our food and our survival. In 2017, a scientific report revealed that 76% of flying insects had vanished from German nature reserves over the past 25 years. Extinguished insect life and human life will follow. One farmer quoted in the manifesto argues that we must all rethink the way we live, shop, cook and eat, so that we wean ourselves off damaging farming that has fed us cheaply, but at an appalling price to nature. The manifesto is only a first draft. Some ideas will be criticised. Many of you will have other great ideas. Let's share them, debate them, and take decisive steps to save the wildlife that enriches every single one of us. Okay, so there is the article there. Hopefully, having read that, you've been able to pick out quite a lot of kind of techniques that have been used already. And I want us to start to think about the tone that's being created in this article as well. Okay, So let's have a little bit of like kind of zoom further into this article and look at the structure a little bit more. So I want you to start by kind of looking at the sections of this article and really considering the impact of the devices that have been used and the structure of it. So here we have Peckham start an article with a personal anecdote. So personal story, and it straight away engages the reader. So earlier this summer I sat in my garden admiring a small wildflower patch I'd sown. Then I realised something was missing. Not a single butterfly jinked between the flowers, no bumblebees buzzed, no hoverflies hovered. Now, I want you to write down next to that and around that, what effect do you think this creates? Does his tone shift even in the short paragraph itself? Where and how? There's a lot of tone shifting throughout this article. And this is what we need to think about. So I would like you, please, to just pause this clip and get your ideas down about that. Okay, so hopefully what you've managed to kind of pick out here is straight we've got earlier this summer I sat in my garden admiring small, so it's quite an optimistic, peaceful, idyllic tone at the beginning there, quite a calming tone as well. And we don't expect perhaps here this idea of loss, of emptiness when we have then I realised something was missing. So followed by that kind of short declarative sentence there, we automatically know the tone's going to shift. This isn't going to be a typical, beautiful, perfect summer day because there's no butterflies, no bumblebees, there's no hoverflies. So straight away it creates a sense of loss, doesn't he? This emptiness. And straight away it's almost like a sense of grief for what should have been there. And that's what I kind of get through the tone. So even in the opening of this, there is a shift in tone. Really interesting. And of course, we have the repetition, not a single butterfly, no bumblebees, no hoverflies. So we've got the parallel phrasing and the repetition just to emphasize that loss. Okay, so if we look at this section here then, so in that kind of first part of this article, we have the shock, we have the accusation, we have the undertones of anger, we have the statistics to really emphasize that shock and emphasize the problem as well. So in all the 3 paragraphs, I would like you now to find examples of language which challenge the reader and possibly even offend them as well, because it's quite accusational. I want you to circle them and I want you just to kind of write down, not to share with your partner, but just write down what kind of impact do you think these might have on a reader. Okay, so what you may have had circled are things like this. So for example, loss and lost. Okay, so it's this idea of straight away which challenges the reader. Our notion of loss and lost, the fact that we think of it like this, it challenges our thoughts and our thought process and our ideas of this straight away. Well, no, actually, that is kind of, this is not what it's about. It's much more severe than that. These emotive words: killed, starved, poisoned, ploughed up, concreted over, straight away. It makes us think that, actually, okay, we've actually been part of the problem here because we're not understanding the seriousness of this. Lazy. He says our lazy. He makes it very personal there. That we're lazy, self-excusing terminology, really accusational as well, and creating shame, I suppose, as well in the reader. Shocking is like a vicious game of top trumps. Nice simile there to suggest that how we're handling this isn't correct. We need to take it more seriously. It's not a game. So really kind of important and effective techniques used there. Okay, so this clip is going to stop in a moment. So once you've finished listening to this clip, I would like you to listen to part B, just to kind of finish this lesson off. Thank you for listening.